Thank you, Russ. And good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. I'm really honored to be with Future Church. I'm so impressed. You really are a rather remarkable organization, and one of the few that allows the space where people can feel safe to explore their understandings of God and church. So thank you for really being so faithful to your mission. And I know you are all quite aware of what is happening with our current administration in Washington. I'm not going to go into it in any great detail. But if you're like me, it's sort of unbelievable that so many of the values that we hold and so many of the gospel values, the values of democracy, seem to be being absolutely dismissed. And there's a real sense of powerlessness as anybody who has any potential power are remaining silent and compliant. So it leaves me with a feeling of impasse. And that experience has been significant in my life. It really led me to start the Institute for Communal Contemplation and Dialogue in 2002. It was what I told the Leadership Conference of Women Religions in my presidential address in 2000. I said we were at an impasse with some in the hierarchy of the church, and all the ways we knew how to affect change just did not work. That we really had to imagine new ways of responding that came from that deepest place within ourselves, where the God's divine love dwells. And I was really inspired by the work of Constance Fitzgerald, whom some of you may know. She's a cloistered Carmelite sister from Baltimore. And she wrote, and let me just quote her here, "Our time and place in history bring us face to face with profound societal impasse. We can find no escape from the world we have built, where the poor and oppressed cry out, where the earth and environment cry out, and where the specter of nuclear waste already haunts future generations. Everything is just too complex, too beyond our reach. Every logical solution remains unsatisfying. And the most dangerous temptation is to give up, to surrender, to quit. It is only in the process of bringing the impasse to prayer, to the perspective of the God who loves us, that our society will be freed, healed, changed, brought to paradoxical new visions, and freed for nonviolent, selfless, liberating action, freed, therefore, for community on this planet Earth." I return to these insights again at this time and for today. Our time together will be a time to bring our experience to the God who loves us. Will we begin with some reflection on contemplation and then actually a contemplative sit to prepare ourselves to reflect on Lent and the various days of the Triduum. Each reflection will begin with a short reading from Journey Faith, and then there'll be time for you to reflect, to see how that reflection engages your own heart, what's emerging in you. At the very end of our time together, we will have a time to share in triads, and then some reflection in the large group. So if you take a breath, I will put on the PowerPoint. And so stop, take time, drop deeply into divine presence. I'm assuming many of you already have a commitment to contemplation. In case you don't worry. I'm going to spend a little time sharing with you how I understand and express this contemplative stance and give some suggestions as how to practice it before we actually engage in sitting. I'm going to be going through some slides, and like almost a Lectio Divina, what I'll do is I'll read them slowly. And for those who have contemplative practice, it'll be a reminder. For those who do not, it'll be a way of getting you into the spirit of a contemplative sit. So, contemplation is a form of prayer that over time awakens us to who we truly are and how we want to be in the world. Contemplation is a direct experience of divine mystery. Contemplation is the invitation to drop down deeply into that space where we encounter God, divine mystery, divine energy. I know it's difficult to capture in language, perhaps your own experience of God. So however you call God, please do so in the course of the next 2 hours. Contemplation is a prayer in which we consent to the workings of divine mystery within us for our transformation and for that of the world. Contemplation is not only for our interior growth, it is a catalyst for us to awaken to a new lens to see the world and its transformation. Over time, as we keep dropping down into a deep interior silence, we begin to let go of who we think we are and how we view others and the world. We're creating a space for our transformation into a truer way of being. Now, this happens over time, most likely not when you're sitting in contemplation. It's the growing in our own consciousness that makes us alert to what triggers us to react to people and situations. We become more aware of why do we see an us and a them, and why don't we just see an us? As we continue to encounter divine mystery, we then continue to encounter our true self, our healthy self. I know there's lots of different ways of defining self, true self, authentic self. For today's purposes, it's our healthiest self. And it's part of emptying who we've been told we're supposed to be. It's like the kenosis of Jesus. There's a letting go. We're able then to respond to situations out of our contemplative heart. We're able to stay in that presence, carried in the knowing heart, that's sort of like a magnet, pulls us toward our center amid everything that is happening. So then we can begin to respond in new ways. This letting go can open oneself up to a new way of seeing, to a transformed consciousness that can embrace a way of seeing without blame or shame, a way of seeing that is more inclusive, expansive, diverse, and interconnected. A more both and rather than either or way of seeing ourselves and the world. It's a consciousness that enables us to live and engage the crises of our time from the indwelling of divine love. We're more able to embody and respond from the gospel values of equality, inclusivity, peace, mercy, right relationships, and justice. It is this understanding of contemplation as a powerful force for transformation that is needed to address this time we are in. Teilhard de Chardin states that the next stage of evolution is the evolution of consciousness. It will need a new container to hold its form, a new brain with new neurological grooves, which allows us to see a both and rather than either or, that demands a new way of seeing, a new way of being. And contemplation invites us to do that. Contemplation takes time, and there are practices that you engage in to strengthen and expand your capacity for this transformative journey. So let me just address a couple of them. First, contemplation is a non-discursive form of prayer. There are many different forms of prayer, right? We have the scripted words that we're given, the prayers that we learned when we were children. We have meditation, where we try to get in touch emotionally with perhaps one of the figures in a parable. And then contemplation. For purposes here, contemplation is really a non-discursive form of prayer, a prayer that doesn't use words, images, or thoughts. You're trying to release yourself what you've been sort of told what to think and feel. You're really trying to enter that deepest space, and you simply let go and try to still all your thoughts, which isn't always easy, because you're creating a silence, but a silence that is in and of itself full. And that's very difficult today. You know, with all of our telephones, the texts, all the emails, all the little sounds that tell you something has come into your phone, we really having harder and harder to be people of silence. But this is extremely important because in contemplation, we cultivate a silence that's not empty, but there's a felt full presence. You become present to the now, not to what has been happening in your life or what will be happening. It's not something you're dwelling on. It's only the here and the now. It's actually the only time we have is our present. You leave the rest behind. And contemplation is taking a long, loving look at the real. So it begins to free you to do that. One of my favorite ways of talking about this is the feminist theologian, Brazilian theologian, Ivone Jabara. She was talking once and she said, I say to people, God, and people's heads go up, and they're looking around. And then she says, God, and then she puts her hands and says, look around yourself. Our reality is here. And what we need to do is we just don't see it all. We have to see what is in front of us. We have to see it in new ways, and we begin to see it in wholeness. It's an opening to unconditional divine love. Contemplation is an invitation to experience that. Once you know you can't earn God's love or lose it, you're free to embrace who you are without blame or shame. You're free to move forward in new ways. So with that, I'm going to suggest two different approaches for contemplation. And again, if you have your own, please just do that particular practice. But one practice is use of breath or focus your attention. John Main, the Benedictine, brought this back into Christianity a few decades ago. And basically, it's to follow your breath on the in and the out, either just following it or using a mantra like Jesus on the inhale and exhale mercy. And you use it so that every time a distraction comes, which is an itch on the nose or some new thought, you go back and you keep following your breath. You put your attention to it. Now, Thomas Keating in centering prayer brought forth the cloud of the unknowing into the 21st century. And in his centering prayer, you use a word. He says a word finds you, or you find a word, a simple word. And you, after breathing, of course, breathing is important for both parts, you start to say that word. So for me, trust is my word. So I say trust, and then I let it go. But as soon as something starts to come into my thoughts and distract me, I say the word, but I don't hold on to it. I don't keep repeating it. Sort of like a placeholder. And all you do is let it go. You're dropping down. It's that dropping down sense, that kenosis. And you just are silent again. Another thought comes, then you return to your word. And Keating was very good. He said there's 4 R's. The first 3 are, when you're sitting there, don't resist. Don't spend your time resisting. Don't spend your time reacting. Don't spend your time retaining. Now, I have to say that's my ballyhoo, because every time I sit, I get a new thought. And I think, oh, let me just finish that, and then I'll return. He says, no, even if you think the Blessed Virgin Mary is talking to you, you say, no, come back and return. Always return to your word. So it's the intention in centering prayer, the attention, if you're following a more Eastern or John Main's breath practice. So I'd ask you, if you've not ever done contemplation, to choose one of these two. Otherwise, if you would, we're going to sit for about 10 minutes. And I would simply ask you to use your regular practice or choose one of these. So if you would you get yourself into a comfortable position wherever you are? You can try, if you could sort of sit up, we tend to slouch in this country, and you're trying to get a free access through your entire chakra system so that you can breathe and you can get the energy. Put your feet on the floor if you can, because we're learning so much about energy and how we are always constantly experiencing, we're always in an energy field, and you're contributing to one. This whole screen is, I always like to think of every time I'm on Zoom with a group, we're creating this incredible energy field. So make sure you're grounded. You want to place how you use your hands. Oftentimes you see people with the third finger and the thumb, or your non-dominant hand, your dominant hand in your non-dominant hand, or on your lap, whatever is comfortable, just so you don't have to worry about it. And then see how you want to put your head. You don't want it too high, you don't want it too low, you just want it comfortable. Your body wants to contribute to you in this process and in this practice. And then get yourself together for the practice. And then we set the intention. We set the intention to be open to the divine love working within us for our transformation and the transformation of the world. So we'll now sit for 10 minutes, and I'll bring you back when that's completed. So if you would bring your attention back, but stay in that deep spaciousness as you listen to Kathy Sherman's song, Live from the Depths of Your Being. Live from the depths of your soul. Deep wakens the deep. Deep wakens the deep.
Live from the depths of your being. Live from the depths of your soul. Deep wakens the deep. Deep wakens the deep. Live from the depths of your being. Live from the depths of the soul. Deep wakens the deep. Deep wakens the deep. Live from the depths of your being. Live from the depths of your being. Live from the depths of the soul. Deep wakens the deep. Deep wakens the deep. Live from the depths of your being. Live from the depths of your soul. Deep wakens the deep. Deep wakens the deep.
Stay in that spaciousness as we begin to reflect on the various days of the Triduum. First is Lent. Like us, Jesus lived in tumultuous time. There were divisions within the political and religious groups. People were sick and in need of healing. Certain types of people were considered outcasts, as defined by a strict purity code and shunned by most. There were entitled groups among the religious leaders who flaunted privileges that oppressed others. It was in this milieu that Jesus entered his public ministry. In Jesus, we witness a man who responded to the injustices of his time out of love and not fear, and without blame, in ways that reflected a different worldview, a different consciousness. He saw all as equal and not divided by the purity code of his time. He welcomed the unclean to join him. He healed those who couldn't see physically, but could see the power that Jesus offered them when he would ask, And what do you want me to do for you? He proclaimed his truth, even though it would incite the ecclesial and political authorities. He loved and forgave those who could not accept his words and his invitations. He was tortured, accused of a crime he did not commit, and he suffered the death penalty of the time, crucifixion. He even cried out in desperation, seeking God whom he felt abandon him. At the end of his life, Jesus had nothing to show for it. Most of his followers abandoned or denied him or hid, lest they be seen as associates of his. Only the women stayed and were among the first to encounter the mystery of resurrected life. In the silence of your heart, what emerges as you hear Jesus say to you, "What do you want me to do for you?" So hopefully you have a pencil or a piece of paper, and just to see if anything comes, to write anything, draw anything, to see what do you want to do for you? What do you want the loving God to do for you? And we'll have about a good 5 minutes to reflect on it. The Triduum. Jesus lived out of a highly evolved consciousness that enters into us and is over time changing our hearts and the way we view the world. But we are not there yet. I found Thomas Keating's words very helpful in extending compassion to those with whom I am so dismayed. He agrees that humanity seems stuck in the evolutionary process. He writes in Reflections on the Unknowable, "We are literally crucified between heaven and earth. When you look at a cross, even though nobody's on it, you see a marvelous symbol of where the human condition is right now. To get out of that place requires an integration of joy and sorrow, of hope and knowledge of our weakness. We are all part of humanity. We are all crucified between heaven and earth. We are all invited to admit our weaknesses and our selfishness. We are all invited to grow beyond ourselves, to embrace the reality that we are all connected. In the Catholic tradition, we know that as a mystical body of Christ, we are one body and we need each other. The unity of the human family, the whole planetary community, is the good news of this Easter season. It is what Jesus proclaimed by his life, death, and resurrection. So if you would allow the realization of your own humanity to sink in, and then extend that realization to the other people you know, even to those whom you do not know. Can you sense your weaknesses and strengths in those of us, the rest of us? Can you feel that we are all connected, that we are the body of Christ? Then see what you want to capture and what's emerging in you. We move to Holy Thursday. Beatrice Brutto, in her book, The Holy Thursday Revolution, reflects on the profound act of Jesus washing the disciples' feet on the night before he died. That gesture of the Master acting like a servant proclaims his vision that we are all equal and turns the way the world works upside down. That act is disorienting and disruptive. She reminds us that the disciples are shocked. Peter is the one who objects. He was afraid because if he consented to this action, then everything would change and things could not go back to the way they were. Everything would have to be readjusted: relationships, values, and attitudes. In that revolutionary act, a new consciousness emerged among Jesus's followers. Jesus invites us to see things through that new consciousness. He told us that we are all friends and that the power of God is in us to do as he has done, and even more. He tells us that God lives in him and he in God, that God is in each of us and each of us is in God. It is a dance of mutuality and relationships. Equality, mutuality, abundance, nonviolence, and interconnectedness are lenses through which Jesus sees the world. When we celebrate the Eucharist, remember we are becoming part of the larger community in a more intimate way. Whether we are fully aware of it or not, we are saying that we are willing to grow into the person God desires us to be. We are setting ourselves on a path toward wholeness or holiness, which will invite us to embrace the brutal realities that are part of our world and the remnants of violence that live within us. We are committing ourselves to live in communion with all life, which is to live in solidarity with the oppressed, excluded, and exploited, and to help sustain our earth home. So recall what emerged in you that first reflection. What did you want Jesus to do for you? In what ways are you being asked to see things anew? Picture your relationship with divine love as a dance of mutuality and relatedness. How does that feel? And what does it mean for you to grow into the person divine love desires you to be? And again, if you want to, capture reflection in some way. Good Friday. An image has haunted me since I first read it in an article about the atrocities taking place in South Sudan. It is very disturbing, and I'd rather move past it quickly, acknowledging this happens but not dwelling on it. However, as I read it, the image of Jesus on the cross appeared in my mind's eye and became a scrim through which I cannot help but continue to reflect on the image. As in so many war-torn countries, rape has proliferated in South Sudan. The article spoke of survivors turning up in refugee camps, giving harrowing accounts of women being tied against trees and gang raped by armed combatants from both sides of the conflict. As I let that sink in, I'm filled with tears and outrage. The image is so stark, and it cuts deep as I reflect on being a woman and how vulnerable my body is to those who see it as a spoil of war, who see it as an object that can be used and abused to satisfy some sick release of the sexual urge, or who will only be sexually satisfied by violent conquest. We know South Sudan is not the only place where such crucifixions occur. It happens in countries not at war. It happens in cities. It happens in homes. Women and the life-giving power of our bodies continue to threaten men who do not understand mutuality and the beauty of sexuality rooted in love. Women tied against trees and gang raped. As I read those words, the image of Jesus on the cross became visible. It was as if he could feel what was happening and wept again, suffered again. He lived his life the only way he knew how. He loved. He spoke as friends to those whom his culture, his society, and his religion rejected. He had a vision that could include everyone and which could forgive. He got angry, but he didn't hurt, and he didn't maim, and he didn't rape to prove his manhood. He didn't do anything to deserve such an ignominious death. I imagine these women going about their day in the only way they knew how, trying to keep their children safe from the ravages of war, doing whatever they could to find food, caring for their sick as they faced cholera outbreaks, praying that their children would not be conscripted into the fighting as a child soldier. They didn't do anything to deserve such violence that too often led to their death. I imagined that Jesus's head was down and tears streamed from his face. He couldn't fix it, not then and not now. It is as if in his surrender, in the absence of any guarantee that things would work out, redemption happened. Jesus trusted, despite any evidence, that transformation was happening. I see the women of South Sudan, women everywhere, who have been brutalized and crucified upon their crosses, surrounding Jesus. Together, their sufferings and deaths keep the heavens open, raining down the grace, the energy, and the love needed for future transformation. Allow the suffering of the world to rise up in you. How does it feel not to be able to fix it? Do you trust, as Jesus did, that being who you are meant to be is enough for redemption to continue to happen? Holy Saturday. Liturgically, the time between the Good Friday service and the glorious liturgy of the Easter Vigil symbolizes the time between Jesus' burial and his resurrection. The time when Jesus descended into hell, or in some translations, stormed the gates of hell. Nothing happens that day. No liturgy is celebrated until midnight, when the Easter Vigil begins. In the tradition of storming the gates of hell, listen to these lamentations. Why? Why, O God, are millions of people torn away from their homes, exiled to other lands, their places of shelter destroyed, and the land wasted? Why are mothers and children separated from the people they love, who are off fighting neighbors as in the days of old? My God, have we not learned anything? Where are you, Holy Wisdom, present through the ages? Where are you now when decision makers are faced with excruciating choices as how to defend an unjust invasion now that there is a nuclear option? How did we arm ourselves in ways that escalate violence rather than protect us from unjust assaults? Holy Wisdom, where are you when we need to imagine new possibilities for peace? Divine Compassion, where are you when economic sanctions are used to stop war and all we see are inflation as prices increase at the gas pump? How to become so tolerant of our capacity to consume that we are blinded to the basic human needs of so many throughout the world? Divine Compassion, have you abandoned us as we serve our own needs and desires first? Holy and Loving One, what is happening to our world seemingly gone mad? Where are you when we are facing chaos and must imagine new ways forward? Where are you when all that we took for granted is shifting before our eyes? Where are you when we need to know that love continues to hold us together and that we are all one? Jesus on the cross cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" With that lament, he freed himself to experience the unimaginable possibility of life after death. May the hope of new life amid such suffering be given to us all. And so I invite you to lament, to give passionate expression to your grief and sorrow at what is happening in the world, perhaps in your life. In this case, you may want to write it down or scribble something, or especially if you're alone, give voice to it. Give out a yell, give out a scream. Get that place where you are so passionately grieving that you need to get it out of yourself. And then we will go to Easter. and Easter. The institutions and systems that we have relied on over these last centuries are failing us and cannot bring us into the future. To paraphrase a quote of Einstein, we cannot solve the problems of today at the same level of consciousness that created them. The questions that are arising in us need to be responded to out of a new vision. Who am I in this world? Am I alone, or are we connected? Is there meaning in life? Does what I do make a difference? Is this universe a vast, empty space void of any purposes? What happens after I die? Today, these questions have to be addressed out of a new consciousness, one that integrates our faith and science. The final discourse in John offers us a vision. There, Jesus tells his friends, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. I'm going to prepare a place for you. I will not leave you orphans. You all are one. You will do greater things than I, and you are to love one another." The existential questions were being addressed, and I found myself reflecting on my Christian faith, not simply as I learned it growing up, but rather as informed by ancient wisdom traditions, interfaith perspectives, and the insights of evolution and quantum physics to calm my fears and offer insights into moving forward. What we are learning in physics is that everything is connected at all levels of existence, and that reality has many dimensions, most of which cannot be observed or measured, and that there are ways of knowing other than the rational that are needed to grasp what is being revealed and what we are living in. These current discoveries lend themselves to an openness to explore the spiritual dimensions of ourselves and our reality, to touch into another way of knowing, of sensing what is, that has been lost these past centuries. Christian mystic Teilhard de Chardin proclaims that the entire universe is permeated with the presence of Christ. The entire cosmos has become his body, and the blood flowing through it is his love. Jesus spent his life becoming more attuned to receive the intense spiritual energy necessary for his transformation. Through Jesus' death and resurrection, he showed us that the walls between the realms are paper thin, interpenetrating and mutually permeable by love. We can draw strength from him here and now to live lives with the fullness of eternity if we remember that even after death, our personhood remains alive, hidden with Christ in God. Such articulations stir my soul as new expressions of God's creation, everlasting life, life's purpose, and implications for our role in the whole enterprise. We know we are not alone. We share a common earthly realm and are connected to each other. More subtle realms through which we experience divine creativity and abundance. We will encounter storms and pain as they are part of the human condition, but we will not be held captive by that pain, for we are released through Jesus' willingness to live and die aligned with divine love. And Jesus assured us that we can live that way as well. Our choices do matter. The invitation there is to trust, to let go, deeply aligning with divine love, which permeates and embraces the many realms in which we live and breathe and have our being. That certainly is Easter joy. So what is emerging in you as you ponder Jesus' death and resurrection, the Paschal mystery? And what does it mean for you to align with divine love?
Turn your face to the sun, beloved of God, beloved of earth, sea, and stars. Receive, receive the blessing of light bestowed. Radiance, radiance becomes you. Turn your face to the sun, beloved of God, beloved of earth, sea, and stars. Receive, receive the blessing of light bestowed. Radiance, radiance becomes you. Turn your face to the sun, beloved of God, beloved of earth, sea, and stars. Receive, receive the blessing of light bestowed. Radiance, radiance becomes you.
And so if you would just take another minute or two to simply see what, after these last hour and a half or so, what is staying with you. We're going to go into small groups for about 15, 20 minutes, just to share, in a reverential way, what's going on with you and how you experience the different parts of the Triduum. So just about 1 or 2 minutes, and then I'll hand this over to Russ. So I thought for these last few minutes, we can just sort of share. And I'm not sure exactly what you'd like to share. I would hope it'd be sort of in that same reverential way, if there was something you talked about or something that inspired you, or if you, rather than a real question and answer, but I'm open to either. So whatever you want to share is great. And I think, Russ, you're going to have people raise your hand or use the.
Yeah, so if you could use the raise your hand feature, that's down. You'll see at the bottom of your screen a little heart that has the word react underneath it. If you click on that, you'll see a button at the bottom of the window that says raise hand. That way we just know who to call on in which order. So if you have a comment, or if you have a reflection, or if you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand. Okay, Jane, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to go ahead and unmute yourself, and I'll bring you up on screen.
Okay, I didn't mean to be the first one to chime in here, but in the discussion with Holy Thursday, Nancy, you mentioned that the relationship with God is like a dance, and I related an experience several years back. I was in a just kind of a crazy program, but a world champion ballroom dancer was there. We all had a chance to dance with him, and I'm dancing and thinking I'm doing absolutely great, and he says to me, "Jane, you're leading. I'm the one who's supposed to lead." And with this just reference to that, our relationship with God, is God is the one who's supposed to be leading. And so often we want to be in control and we want to do what we want. And the requirement for openness to really be trusting enough to let God lead and follow God's lead.
Thank you for sharing that. And if you haven't ever watched Strictly Ballroom, it's an old film. I think you'd probably love it. Strictly Ballroom.
Thank you, Jane. Beautiful comment. Let's see, Susan Adrians, let me bring you up on screen here.
Yes. Well, first I want to just thank Nancy. Nancy, I've heard you before, and I just always so appreciate what you share. Yeah. This time I became more aware, and I'm sure you've done it other talks, but this time I became more aware of how different my reflection was, my being was when I was in that contemplative stance. Like you said, so we did start it with that. And then you said, now try to stay in that during the whole time. And I did. And you know what? I realized, wow, this is something practice I want to do. I do my own practice, but I want to stay like this as I can before, I meet somebody or whatever, because it really does make a difference. I felt really moved to say, wow, this has got to become more a practice in my life. But all our group was wonderful, and everything that you shared just for me just was resonated. Um, and the other thing that I want to just tell you, when you talked about Holy Saturday, and you say lament, and give passionate expression to your grief and sorrow as to what is happening in the world. You know what? And I just grunted. I just grunted because I don't want to scream, but I just got, some of that stuff out. So, anyway, and I love some of the images I did and all that. But thank you, thank you, thank you. You are a gem. Keep offering these things for us, okay?
Thanks, Susan. And it's so important because that what you experienced. I mean, once you see the difference, you know that it's something you want to incorporate in your life. So thank you for sharing that. And I love the grunting, especially this time. I mean, and the thing about lamenting is different to me than adding to the toxic energy that's out there. You can sit and watch TV with people, and all of a sudden they're all just screaming at what's happening now, depending on your political persuasion, disliking what's going on and screaming and yelling, and that only is contributing to negativity. But lamenting is another kind of an action. It might sound the same, may not exactly, but it is the grunt, it's the scream, it's taking what's physically eating you and getting it out there so we can be free to move on in some way. So thank you for sharing your grunting. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Let's see, Diane, let me bring you up here.
Well, thank you again, Nancy, for a wonderful mini retreat. And we talked about how, Christmas is fun, Easter is deep, the Triduum is deep. And I just wanted to share a question. We didn't have time to really talk about it, so I'm bringing it up now. We spoke about, the being able to enter deeply and relate to stewardship and at Holy Thursday, and compassion and passion during Holy Saturday. But that Good Friday is a problem for some of us in terms of feeling the sense of passion or relating to that time. And I'm just wondering if you have any insights that could help.
Did you find, I mean, I probably would have been in a similar place as you, but I know for myself that experience with seeing on Good Friday the crucifixion of the women really brought it home to me in a new way. So if you could say a little bit more about the distancing you're experiencing, just if you can.
I really can't, other than it was a question one of us had, and then we were cut. We needed to rejoin the larger group. So it was just comments about having difficulty being, I guess, entering into the sense of deep feeling and passion on Good Friday.
Yeah, I don't quite know. I would certainly understand. I think there's some resistance depending on where your theology is and your own questioning about salvation, the whole, like this, Jesus had to die or something. And it's really, I think, died because he lived such a profound, integrated life that he had to be put to death. I mean, there was just the powers that be could not let him continue.
My response to the person was just that, sometimes the gruesomeness and the torture of his death is so painful, we have to distance ourselves. Yeah. That's all I could think of. But I like what you're saying about thinking about the women there. I really like that. I think that would be very helpful.
At least it certainly helped me, let me say. So however you find it. Thank you. Thanks, Diane.
Thank you.
Thanks, Diane.
You're welcome.
Patricia, let me bring you up on the screen here. And you'll just need to unmute, Patricia.
Well, thank you. I can relate with the question about Good Friday. For me, it's Good Friday services. I think what I'm coming from is, in my tradition, Catholic, is too much. It's too much and too much words, and I need more contemplation. So I don't know what I will do on Good Friday, but what I was really moved with is the lamentation again, because I watch the news and I want to cry, and I can only take so much. But I think in your last comment, Nancy, that was helpful, because instead of the crying when I'm watching the news is a lamentation prayer, actually. So that's how I'm hearing it now. And it was good just to have that moment to really cry it out. And I do drawing and little, like, their mandala drawings. And I had one I had done previously, and it's just the tears of the broken heart is what it is. So I really appreciated that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Patricia.
Thanks, Patricia. Sue, let me bring you up here. Go ahead, Sue. You're already unmuted.
Okay, thanks a lot, Russ. Thank you, Nancy. One of my words about what do you want is I want to have a beautiful Triduum this year. I love the Triduum, and you brought us right into it. The one thing that came to mind at the end when you were talking about the resurrection is, in the Eastern Church, just in the last 2 or 3 years, I've become familiar with this icon of Anastasis. It's Christ's descent into Hades. And actually, Richard Rohr did a homily about it in 2022 called A Feast of Hope. But it's Jesus with his robes flowing as he's descending into Hades, standing on the gates of Hades that have been broken open. And he has one hand holding on to Adam and one hand holding on to Eve, bringing all into the resurrection with him. And of course, there's saints and prophets behind him in the icon. It's a fabulous way to enter into resurrection, where the whole cosmos is resurrected. It's not just the one risen Christ that we have as a beautiful icon, but it kind of doesn't say it in the same way that this Eastern icon does. So I invite you to, yes.
That whole image, though, do you know Cynthia Bourgeot? Are you familiar with her?
Yes.
She was the master teacher for Richard, but she does incredible explanation about the harrowing of hell and what all that meant and what the significance of that is. So you might, if you haven't looked, I'm trying, I can't remember which book it's in, but it's a beautiful,
okay.
But she's with
Thank
that
you.
image. I'll look for it. Anastasis.
Yes. Anastasis, or Christ descend into Hades. I think either way you'd find it. It's an Eastern icon. Thanks for the Cynthia Bourgeot info. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. Thanks for sharing that icon with us. All right, Mary Claire, I see you're on an iPhone. I can't bring you up onto the screen because you don't have your video on, but go ahead.
Thank you, Russ. Nancy, I was the person that had the question about Good Friday.
Oh,
For most of my life, I've been a liturgist and music minister for a faith community. And it's a tense and amazing period of time, the Triduum and all. But I get to Friday and it's just as dry and almost meaningless to me. And I don't know if it's the structure of the liturgy. It's not the music, because the music that we do is beautiful, but it just leaves me like, what's wrong with me that I don't feel this?
well, I think I mean, I think you probably touched on some of it, and I think Patricia mentioned the amount of words in it.
Yes, 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 yes.
Um, Depending, of course, on what translation, but I mean, all the different things that go through, and then the kissing of the, whether that's appropriate, the kissing of the crucifixion, the cross. I can see, yes, I think you probably have named it for yourself. I don't know how you would, depending on the priest that you have, if he continues. I guess it wouldn't have to be a priest on Good Friday. I mean, there is a perfect.
No, we are women's Benedictine monastery, so we do not have a priest on Good Friday. We do it ourselves.
Great. So then you can maybe you should think about with a little group and just see if you can create something, do some lamentation or something.
That's a very good idea. It's probably too late for this year, but something to definitely think about for next year. And thank you for the images. The images that you shared today were they did touch me. So it means that there's something in there to touch. I just have to find it on Friday.
And we'll all be praying that you do this Friday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Claire. I do see we've got 3 people with their hands up. I'd like to fit everyone in, so if we could just be brief and then we'll call it because we're coming up towards our time here. So Louise, let me bring you up on screen here. And you'll just need to unmute, Louise.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy, for a wonderful and inspiring program. I didn't know we were going to do the Triduum by days, and I love that. I just wanted to say that after a program as contemplative centered as yours is, I find it difficult to then participate in a group or to ask a question. My head is just not there. But I will share what was almost the last thing that we heard, and that was in the song. And the line was, "Radiance becomes you." And I thought to myself, how wonderful that notion of radiance on Easter. Radiance becomes us, it enriches us, it changes us, but it turns us into radiance, the radiance of Christ. So we become radiance, radiance becomes us. And I thank you, and I thank the singer of the song.
Kathy Sherman, you're welcome. Thank you for sharing.
Beautiful reflection, Louise. Thank you. Carmela, let me bring you up here. Maybe let me send you a message to see if you can click on that. Might be easier that way. There you go.
First of all, thank you very much. I love the way you treated the Triduum, a lot more meaningful than if I had gone to church. But what I wanted to share was lamentation was meaningful, and the image of the woman tied to a tree. In these days, it's been very hard for probably all of us because of what's going on. But what touched me at the very end of my conversation And I was lucky enough to be with someone from England who said to me, we know it's not the American people, we know it's the one man. And that touched me because there's understanding there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Carmela.
Thanks, Carmela. And Anne Marie, I'm not sure which of you has the comment, but I'll bring you up on screen here. And you'll just need to unmute.
Okay. Thank you. This is Marie. Really two things. One, Nancy, I repeat what so many have said, the deep gratitude for you. And if you want to say radiance, that is what you have been to us for many, many years. You also gave me a lot personally to think about in my own need for transformative behaviors in view of what we are all going through in the country. So thank you. And then the other is, could you possibly put your email on chat?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Russ, maybe I can do it. I will put in chat my email, but also
Okay.
the Institute's,
Oh, Institute.
you're not part of the
Okay.
Institute. Get on and just sign up. You can get not many mailings. And Sylvester at AO. I'm still on AOL.com, if you can believe that. And then SDITUTE.org.
I'd just like to send you a drawing I did in the process of listening to you.
Good. That'd be terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thanks, Marie. Let me remove that spotlight there, and I'll remove Nancy's spotlight. Thank you so much, Nancy, for all of the effort and care that you put into today and put into us during this time together. It was a really special and beautiful way to enter into this Holy Week. And I know I'm one of those who can have a tendency to doom scroll. And this was a really different way for me to interact with the world and the news, and I so greatly appreciate that. I also want to thank all of you for joining us today and for going on this journey together. It's always good to be with the Future Church community. I mentioned at the top of our time together that Nancy's book, Journey Faith in an Entangled World, is...
I'm holding it up.
Oh, okay. And Journey Faith in an Entangled World is Nancy's book, and it's available on Amazon. I'm putting a really long link to it in the chat, but it was in your reminder email. So if you want to go there, you can get that in the reminder email, and of course I'll put it in the follow-up email too. And it would be a really great companion for this time.
And can I just quickly add, if you do like share the link and look at this kind of the retreat with other people, if you would help to just encourage people to look at it's paperback and an ebook, and even put it out in some social media. I'm trying to find some wider markets for it. So you are the people that if you liked what you heard, you'll like the book. So thank you for doing that.
Perfect. Thank you, Nancy. All right, that's going to do it for me. If you would like to say your farewells, please feel free to do so. And otherwise, have a beautiful weekend and a blessed Palm Sunday.